Me again. Time for the boring old fat whiny woman, bonbon eating triple chin. We're back here doing obligation video time. If I start laughing, it's because of Jerry. He's asleep on the couch and she's snoring. So if you hear anything, that's why. And I also want to thank Cabbage for all this beautiful cat hair glitter that's getting my sinuses going. Thank you, Cabbage. Anyway, I have not been on YouTube for almost 2 weeks. I've been doing stuff, indoor things to the house. And I did a little too much. Did too much. And this is the crazy part. When you injure yourself when you're younger, when you get older, it does not go away. It actually gets worse. Yeah. So that's what's been going on. So, but I did get on YouTube and I'm watching this stuff. This came up. This person who is a faith healer came up, said, well, you're not going to get no healing because of your unbelief. And I'm like, oh, no, we're not letting that slide. We're going to actually cover that. Now, was that verse actually in the Bible? Yes, it is. But we're going to study context and see what actually went on with that verse. So let's get started on it. That verse is in Matthew 13:58. And he did not many mighty works there because of their unbelief. Right there it is, Rose. You can have faith healers tell me all day long that my legs ain't going to get healed by them because I have unbelief. Ain't going to be healed from this and that's it because of unbelief. I actually got thrown out of a Pentecostal church, believe it or not. And wouldn't let a faith healer touch me. I got told that very thing because of my unbelief. I actually got thrown out of a family. Not welcome in a family because of that, a part of the family. Regardless, let's get started on this. Now, this is Christ saying they did not do many works there because of their unbelief. Where is he at? Well, he's actually in their hometown. This is in Matthew 13. And we're going to look at this. Excuse me. We're going to look at this about what did Jesus do in his hometown. And let's look at the unbelief that was there. If we go to Matthew 4 and you read verse 13, leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt unto Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast in the borders of Zebulun and Nephthalim. So here we got in Matthew 4, Jesus is in his hometown. So let's look at what actually happened and the unbelief that caused him not to do nothing. Yeah, it's not what you think. Maybe I should preface this before we go on. Now, what I'm saying when preachers say, you're not going to get no miracles because of your unbelief, or your church ain't going to get no miracles because of your unbelief and all this stuff. That's what it's talking about. That because of unbelief, they cannot have miracles presented to them. And what they're doing is apologizing for not being able to heal. It's essentially what they're doing. And they use that verse. Jesus couldn't do nothing because of their unbelief. Oh, that gets a little bit bigger. They're actually taking Christ and putting it in the failure camp with them. And we're going to look at this in Matthew and see that this is definitely not the case. That unbelief did not stop Christ. We actually see an example of unbelief that caused people not to receive miracles. And it's not as they put it, these faith healers. No. It's totally different. Yeah, so let's cover that. So here we're in Matthew 4, and he's within his hometown. He's within the area. He's in the area that they say this unbelief was going and Christ couldn't do nothing. Well, if you drop down from Matthew 4 and drop down to 24, and his fame went throughout Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people. Now this, if you go look at a map, this is still Jesus' area. This is still Jesus' walking area and his hometown area. And his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. Right there, Christ is healing them. And there followed with him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, from Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. So here you got all these people being healed. Now keep in mind, this is when the same area that preachers want to say, Jesus couldn't do it because of unbelief. I can't do it because of unbelief. Okay, now keep that in mind. If we go to Matthew 9 and go to the top of the chapter, we see, and Jesus entered into a ship and passed over and came to his own city. Once again, this is a place that Matthew 13, his own city, his own town. So let's see what happened here with unbelief and his ability to do miracles. And behold, they brought to him a man sick of the palsy, laying on a bed. And Jesus, seeing their faith, said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, be of good cheer, thy sins be forgiven thee. And behold, certain other scribes said within them, This man blasphemeth. Now, is people telling Christ that he blasphemed? Is that enough unbelief? He still healed them, even though they got these people and scribes saying he's blaspheming. He's still able to do miracles. Crazy. Let's continue. And Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, Therefore think ye evil in your hearts, for it was easier to say, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Arise and walk. But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins. And then he said to the sick of the palsy, Arise and take up thy bed and go in thine house. And he arose and departed to his house. But when the multitude saw it, they marveled and glorified God, which had given such power unto men. Let's see, where else we want to go? If you go to Matthew 9 and drop down to 18. Now that was in his own hometown. That was in 9:1, Matthew 9:1. Now if you go to 18, while he spoke these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshipped him, saying, My daughter is even now dead, but come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. Notice this horrible unbelief that happened. And Jesus arose and followed him, doing so with his disciples. And behold, a woman which was diseased with the issue of blood 12 years came behind him, touched the hem of his garments. For he said within herself, If I may touch his garments, I shall be made whole. But Jesus turned from them and saw her and said, Daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith hath made thee whole. The woman was made whole from that hour, and Jesus came. Now, during this time, Jesus healed the woman of her blood issue. Now, when we get to 23, and Jesus came unto the ruler's house and saw the minstrels and the people making a noise, and he said to them, Give place, for the maid is not dead, but sleepeth. Notice what happened in that verse. And they laughed him to scorn. Is that not a lot of unbelief? They laughed him to scorn. A few moments ago, they're accusing him of blasphemy. Now they're laughing him to scorn. But let's see what happens. But when the people were put forth, he went in, took her by the hand, and the maid arose. And the fame of her went abroad unto all that land. Let's see, where else do we want to go? You go down to 29, saying he touched his eyes, according to your faith, be it unto you. And their eyes were open, and Jesus strangely changed them, saying, See that no man know it. But they that were departed set abroad, and his fame were all in that country. And they went out, behold, they brought him a dumb man possessed with the devil. And when the devil was cast out, the dumb spake, and the multitudes marveled, saying, It has never been seen in Israel. But the Pharisees saith, He cast out the devils by the prince of devils. And Jesus went about all in the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. They accused him multiple times of blasphemy, and they mocked him to scorn. Is that not enough unbelief to happen in his own hometown? But he is able to perform miracles. That's crazy. I'm thinking some of these faith healers are not getting context. And that's pretty bad. They're putting Jesus in the loser category with themselves. Regardless, if you go to Matthew 11, go to 23, And thou, Capernaum, which art exalted unto heaven, it shall be brought down to hell. For the mighty works which have been done in thee have been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. Oh, snap. So he's talking about his own hometown, that if they had had the same works done in it as Sodom and Gomorrah would have been saved. But he's talking about his own hometown here. Well, not his own hometown, but it's like right there within walking distance. Yeah, it's his own hometown. It's the same area spoken of in Matthew 13. Now, why does Jesus not do any mighty works there because of unbelief? Well, Jesus told you, if you go to Matthew 10, he told you how to deal with these individuals. Now, keep in mind, they had 3 miracles already. They had people healed. They had the dead rose. They had the blind to see, demons cast out. They've already had these miracles performed. And he tells you right there in Matthew 11, if Sodom and Gomorrah had seen these works, they would still be standing. So why doesn't he do miracles in 13 in the same hometown? Well, he tells you right here in Matthew 10. If you go to 10 and 14, And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when ye depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Now, when you have preachers who are over here saying, well, you're not going to get healed because of your unbelief, or these people ain't going to be healed for their unbelief. And they quote this verse, and they say, look, Jesus' own hometown had nothing done because of their unbelief. You need to point out to that preacher, they already had 3 miracles performed. So much so that Jesus said if it was Sodom and Gomorrah had seen what you have seen, they would still be standing. That's the context of that verse. So I hope everybody looks at that and does a study on that about Matthew 13 and 58. You can't have preachers putting Jesus in a loser category with themselves because they can't do something. Now, I did speak of a time where unbelief is the reason that a miracle was not performed, and it wasn't by Jesus. If you go to Matthew 17 and go down to 14, And when they were there come unto the multitude, there they came unto a certain man kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he's a lunatic, and he's vexed. For oft times he falleth into a fire, and oft into the water. And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him. Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long I be with you? How long I suffer you? Bring him hither to me. And Jesus rebuked the devil and departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Then come the disciples to Jesus apart and said, why could not we cast him out? And Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief. It wasn't because of the unbelief of the child. It wasn't the unbelief of anybody except the disciples. That's the only unbelief that's going to stop, that we have an example of, that is going to stop a miracle from happening. Let me continue to read. For verily I say unto you, if we have faith as a grain of a mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to go yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Howbeit this kind go out not by prayer and fasting, howbeit this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. And while they abode in Galilee, Jesus said unto them, Son of Man shall be betrayed into the hands of men, and they shall kill him on the third day, and he shall rise again. And they were exceedingly sorry. And when they were there, they come to Capernaum, that received tribute money, come to Peter and say, Doth not your master pay tribute? Once again, here we go. We're in the same area. So the only time you have an individual that did not do something because of unbelief, that somebody was not healed because of unbelief, it wasn't because of the person being healed didn't have unbelief. Some of these people didn't even know who Jesus was or who the disciples were, and they were still getting healed. Some people were going there having their shadow pass over them. But it was not because of unbelief that didn't happen. Christ had already showed them 3 miracles in their hometown, and they still didn't receive. So Christ said, that's it. Dust off your feet. You know, you hear that, don't throw your pearls before swine. Seems like a lot of people are missing that stuff today. I digress. Regardless, so they had 3 miracles that were performed. They had 3 miracles. And Jesus dusted off the dust off his sandals. That was it, no more. He said if Sodom and Gomorrah had seen this, they would still be standing. They had seen enough miracles. It wasn't the people's unbelief. It wasn't Christ's unbelief. It was the disciples' unbelief that we only see a miracle not being performed. So just remember that when you see all these faith healers and you hear all this stuff about miracles falling off people, Christ's miracles did not fall off of people. That didn't happen. And a lot of times they will push that back on the person and say, well, it's because of your unbelief. If you have that happen, make sure you point that out. Jesus' hometown had the 3 miracles. They didn't believe after that. He dusted the dust off his sandals. That's why there were no miracles performed in his hometown. It already had 3 prior. Anyway, folks, just want to point that out, give you a little ammunition for when you go up against individuals who want to use that miracles not performed because of unbelief. Yeah, they're misusing that scripture big time. Anyway, folks, just want to point that out. And as always, please read your scripture. Have a fantastic day.